Go ahead, Paul.
Got it. This being as you caught it. Okay, got it. Good. All right, good evening. This is the February 16th, 2022 New Canaan Police Department 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Police Commission. Welcome to all who are on the Zoom call. I apologize, I'm way out of town, but we are all on the Zoom call as we've been doing during the time of COVID. First item on the agenda is minutes from the previous meeting. I had no corrections or additions. Did anybody else have any corrections or additions?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Not here.
Okay. Hey, thanks, James. Motion to approve the minutes then?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
I
Shakeba. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Chief, monthly reports, please.
Sure. The first report I have is our budget. And
Yep.
we should be at 58.3%, where actuals is 57.9%. So we're slightly under budget. A couple of
Yep.
lines are short, salaries, educational, we're going to transfer money into, and that's in process and medical certification, but otherwise overall the budget is on track.
All right, good.
Next budget is animal control, and that's at 55.10. So that is under budget. So that's good news. Any questions about the budget?
Nope, I was good on that.
Okay. Next report I have is monthly statistics. I'll just highlight some incidents. Burglaries, all 1 versus 0. So we did have 2 burglaries about 5 days ago, both involved houses that when the alarm was not on, and a little unusual. It was afternoon or so when they occurred. No one was home, and they broke through a glass sliding window at the back of the houses in both instances. But we have some information about who these burglars are, and they've done similar crimes in Fairfield County. So our investigators are working on that. Family dispute 4 versus 6, so slightly down.
Right.
Larcenies from vehicle 5 versus 6. Continual message obviously is to lock your car and take your valuables in. You won't become a victim. And next item is location check 207 versus 99, and the bulk of that increase is increased checks of our parks and other areas related to crimes that are occurring to reassure the public and hopefully catch these bad guys in the act.
Right, thank you.
Work there. Motor vehicles and property damage 43 versus 23. That's a substantial increase, but we're expecting that. That's a relatively normal number, that 43 related to traffic patterns be normalized now versus what they were in COVID. So you'll see that continue to increase. And motor vehicle accident injury 6 versus 2, similar comment there about traffic patterns increasing. Psychiatric problems 9 versus 5, so that's a substantial increase. And our officers continue to handle some pretty complex psychiatric calls very well. So we're very proud of how well they do and how they handle those calls to get help for our residents. Stolen vehicle 4 versus 3. So obviously all of those vehicles, except I think one claim that there wasn't a key in the vehicle, were unlocked and the keys were in the vehicle. So that's another crime prevention message is don't leave your key in your car, unlock it, and you won't become a victim. That's all I have for statistics. Any questions?
No, but I think, the word is hopefully getting out there that leaving your keys in your car or leaving valuables on the front seat of your car, even if it's locked, is just not a good idea anymore. And unfortunately, it's just not a New Canaan issue. It's a Fairfield County issue, but it's not even, it's not even a Fairfield County issue. We're seeing it in White Plains and in Rye and other places. Friends of mine have, talked to me about that same problem in their neighborhoods. So but again, it's if the key's not in the car, no valuables on the front seats, nothing happens. So
That's right. And good news is
encourage that, right?
Good news is our detectives did a pretty complete investigation in one of the recent stolen vehicles, and one will be arrested soon related to it from a city. So that's a continuing pattern.
That's great. Good to hear.
Next report, I have a staffing report. Our lost time was 22.76, which is about double of what it was last year, same month, but that's expected related to having an officer on military leave and another officer on long-term injury leave. We worked with a minimum shift about 54% of the time. So that comparably is higher than it was last year, same month, because of the staffing, but our staffing levels are pretty stable in comparison to what we've seen in the past. So no real concerns with staffing right now. We do have one opening and we did extend an offer. We're just waiting for a police academy slot so we can button that up.
Okay, and that person accepted, yes,
Yeah, contingently, based
Yeah.
on.
based on the slot and timing and all that. Yeah,
Exactly.
got it. Good. Great candidate.
Yep. Next report is false alarm aging. Biggest number is over 120. I did send an email to the CFO with this report and asked her if she could look at that and decide whether or not she wanted to write that off or just continue to leave it there, because some of those collections have been there for many, many months.
Yep.
I'll report back when I hear back from her. Next item is extra duty aging. Fair amount, about $51,000 over 120. So that's a little bit of concern. But I do know our folks are doing the best they can to collect those monies. And there's some big numbers there, uncollected. Eversource, $38,000. So I'm not sure why that is, but
Yeah.
I'll pass
Okay.
along that
Yep.
list as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all I have for reports.
One thing. Okay, next. Topic for discussion is loading zone discussion on Main Street. John DeFederico, can you talk to us with us about that?
Yes, Mr. Marks from Greenology sent an email asking for an update. Last we spoke, or last year, we sort of tabled the topic because the water main construction was ongoing. It's been completed. We're waiting for resurfacing of the road, which won't happen until spring. Once that occurs, we can decide, and we'll have to decide as a town how we're going to restripe the roads. And as we did on Elm Street, we'll have to be conscious of the crosswalks and not encroaching into the 25 feet of the crosswalks.
Right.
So for that reason, we tabled the discussion of the loading zone, given that there was some changes going to be made with the parking spaces in that area anyway. And that's where we're at. We are waiting for resurfacing of the roads that will happen in the spring, and then we'll have to decide how we're going to restripe the roads and remark the parking spaces.
Okay. We talked about this a fair amount last meeting. James, I've read your emails and I understand your concerns here. Chief, how about Uber drivers and other people who are picking up food? Would they qualify as vehicles in that loading zone? You think?
Well, I think maybe a compromise.
Because that's where the problem is. That's part of the problem is, the Uber guys and Uber Eats and others aren't being treated the same as a truck in a loading zone.
Yeah, and I've discussed this with Stacy, the parking authority.
Okay.
And
yeah,
she tells me that they're trying to be as lenient as possible with Uber Eats and DoorDash and those services that come and pick up food. But I would consider those services loading and unloading. So I think they have a right to use the loading zone during that time if that's what they're doing. the loading zone statute is very vague in general in that nature. It doesn't have to be a truck. It doesn't have to be somebody offloading something
Right.
from, a hand truck or something like that. So I guess technically we could look at it that way, and that would be under Stacy's discretion and her people, but I would recommend to them that that's what they follow to allow that. But we do need to have a loading zone, and we do need to have it, in my opinion, in that area. There's not a lot of other places to move it. It wouldn't be fair to any other businesses to move it to a different location. It's been there for decades, and it is an appropriate spot for a loading zone. It allows enough traffic to get by when there are large trucks there. The road
Right.
width is wide enough to accommodate that, and I think most of the businesses are accustomed to having it there. A lot of the businesses rely on it. The restaurants in that area rely on having a loading zone. So I think it is an appropriate spot for the loading zone, and regardless of how the road is restriped, I don't recommend moving it.
Okay, James, thoughts in here?
Yes, the loading zone continues to be, I think, very disruptive to my business, and I think other businesses as well. I think Stretch Lab, 2 doors down. We have customers. It's early in the morning on a winter day. You've ordered something at Greenology. You're coming to pick it up, and you're going north on Main Street. You approach the restaurant, and there's actually 6 empty spaces there because of the hydrant and the handicap. And you know that you're just running in to pick up a cup of coffee or something quickly. Even though you know it's not legal, people stop there. Short of putting a cement barrier there, you're going north on the street and there's empty parking right in front of the road. People are going to stop there, and they're going to run in and get their food, and they're going to do whatever gymnastics they have to do to get through it without getting a ticket. And I see all kinds of gymnastics every day after 9 o'clock. I think a real easy, simple way to solve this would be to truncate the hours. The loading zone hours right now are 7 to 11 in the morning. If you truncated it to 7 to 9, enforcement begins at 9. We would be able to have our breakfast and our deliveries and our customers without all this aggravation. I mean, I see mothers come and they drop their kids off to wait in the restaurant to pick up their food, a minor, leave them alone in there, and then they'll drive and circle around a few times, waiting for the food to come. And they leave their minor in our restaurant, picking up their food. I mean, when you're going north on Main Street, you'd have to make it, to park on the other side of the street, you'd have to make a U-turn or pull into Town Hall and back out of the driveway. It's very difficult. As far as the loading zone, you also had one across the street. Hasn't been there for decades. You had one in front of Tolly Restaurant, which has been vacant for 5 years. I don't think it would disturb anybody if you moved it over there. And it would be away from the crosswalk. I think that's another problem having a loading zone there, is you'll have trucks backing up into right where there's a crosswalk. It's not a safe place for a loading zone. I feel it's underutilized still. I don't see many trucks. My own trucks park across the street because they're going that direction.
Okay, so when your trucks go to your shop, where do they unload?
They
front of
park
Tally?
across the street,
In the
not in
loading
front
zone?
of Tally. They park in front of where Garlic and Herb used to be, because
Is
they're
there a
making
loading
a
zone
left.
there? Right,
What's that? It's
They're
not a
making-
loading zone.
it's not a
just
loading
No,
zone.
happens to be empty
it's no
early in the
parking.
morning.
It's between 2 crosswalks, so they shouldn't really be.
They shouldn't even be
there.
parking there either.
No, they're parked in front of against the grain where the parking's legal there before the crosswalk.
Okay. They're parking in a regular parking space. Okay.
Yeah, they're parking in a regular parking space.
All right, so let's just go back and break it in 2 pieces, if you will.
Yeah.
Part of the problem was the delivery guys, the Uber Eats and other guys like that, right? They were complaining that they couldn't.
That's a big
right?
problem.
All right,
mean,
let's address
our-
that separately.
Yeah.
All right, just if I can.
Okay,
If if I have an Uber guy coming, and he's got an Uber sticker on his windshield or even on his dashboard, I think that would be a good sign that he's picking up stuff from your place. He's legal in that loading zone, if you will, from 7 to 11. I think that would work, right? And in your case, you were unloading some stuff too. And
I was
the parking
unloading, I had boxes and my trunk was
right.
open.
I know, and if again, if you're in the store and they don't see you there, and they come by, and look, I wasn't there either when it's all unfolded, that you said in your email, but if you had a note on or a note or a card or one of your sort of emblem or your sign on your dashboard, I think that would be helpful too, because then the parking people would know that's you. Right.
And
other
Stacy
people
has
do that
requested
around
that business owners, if they are loading or unloading, leave a note in their dashboard that they are loading, unloading, and they honor that request, and they
Right.
do not ticket under that circumstance.
Right. And in that case, if you had it and it's a nice placard and you have it, put it on your, when you're not using it, put it on your, in your windscreen or on your visor or something above you on the driver's side or the passenger side, out of the way, that'd be fine too. I think that's a solution that would help let them know who you are, that you're unloading, just no tickets. And the same thing with all the Uber Eats or Lyft Eats or any DoorDash or whoever. As long as they have that on their windshield, not on their windshield, but on their dashboard, there's a sign there. I think, we'll talk to Stacy to make sure that they don't ticket those people. How does that sound as a solution?
That's part of the problem, but we still have customers who pull up to get their coffee. They get out of their car. They don't know.
Let's do, I got to break it in two pieces because I can't solve it as one.
Right.
And I'd like to talk to the other commissioners. Would you go along with that, commissioners?
That seems to make sense to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Shakayla?
Yes, yeah.
Now, the
I
other
think-
part, okay, so we're all in agreement that, and we'll talk to Stacy, or John will talk to Stacy, say, look, if they've got an Uber Eats, if it is James, and it's clearly marked, and they're doing unloading and loading packages and boxes in that loading zone in front of your store, they should not get a ticket. We all agree with that, right?
Yes.
I don't,
Well,
John,
one other thing that I can add
Yeah,
to that
please.
may solve some issues for all of us. I have talked with Tiger, and we are reasonably certain that we can
Yeah.
move the fire hydrant closer to
Okay.
the crosswalk in that 25-foot area. So that's a no parking area anyway. So instead of consuming one parking spot where it is now, we can move it closer to the crosswalk. And then
Okay.
we could also move the handicap spot that's directly in front of that across the street, because there's no handicap parking on that side of the street, but there already is one up by the firehouse. So
Wow.
that will open up 2 spots there, and it will put that fire hydrant in that 25-foot zone. So it'll kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone right there. And then it'll open up those 2 spots just in front where there currently is no parking, and they're kind of just mid-block, disruptive to the flow of business there. And I would agree with that those are kind of misplaced, and they've just been there for so long. We should look at relocating those just for the general flow of business. So that may help everybody out. And I think that would solve probably 90% of the problems.
Okay. And when could Tiger get that done, do you think?
That's
we
probably
do.
going to be in the spring. It's still
Before they pave, right?
Yes, yeah. We'll
hopefully.
get that done in the spring. It's just too cold now to start working on water mains and doing that type of work right now. And then the asphalt plants aren't open yet, so that would be in the spring.
Okay, and then move that handicap across the street to where Tally is or something, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because there is none currently on that side of the road, so we really should put one over there anyway.
There should be a handicap on that side. It's because it's kind of 2 handicap on the right-hand side, if you will, going north. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, James, what do you think about that?
I like that. I do, as much as I like having
I-
a parking space in front of the restaurant, I
I
do
know,
feel it's
I know.
dangerous so close to the crosswalk. People backing out could easily hit one of my customers who's crossing the road. So I don't know still how safe of a loading zone it is. You're now losing 25 feet, so you don't have as much room for the loading zone. And I still don't see what the issue is with truncating the hours of the loading zone so that my customers don't get trapped there. They get trapped. It's a trap, and they'll all play the game of let's see if I can park here and not get a ticket because it's worth it.
Well,
And then they'll
but
get
James,
the ticket, and
James,
it'll leave a
James, we have the
terrible
same
taste in their
problem.
mouth.
All right,
from
James,
at
we
my
have the same
restaurant.
James, we have the same
Yes.
problem with all the restaurants. If I go to Dunkin' Donuts or I go to Dolce or go to, whether I go to your shop, I have the same problem. The cars are there, and then people have been pulling into, at Dunkin' Donuts, they pull into the crosswalk, right? It's wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. Dolce, the same thing. They'll double park, same thing.
Mhm.
I mean, people in this town do not like to walk. It's just a fact. We've found this
Well,
for
in the
years.
winter, it's really, it's
But yet,
frigid.
those of us who worked in Manhattan would go to Grand Central and walk 15 or 20 or 30 minutes to our offices. And we'll do that all day long. We'll walk from there back because you can't get a cab. It's quicker to walk than it is to get a cab or a taxi or Uber or whatever. But when they come to New Canaan, boy, they do not want to walk. They will circle that block for 3 times before they get out of the car and either give up or go someplace else. And there is plenty
I
of
mean,
parking at between 7 and 11. There just is.
I mean,
I
our
think.
stuff is difficult. It's coffee and
Yeah.
juices. People come
Yeah.
out with 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you can't walk that far with this stuff.
Can I speak in my Italian?
Yes.
Yeah, Gail Merrill.
Yeah.
Sure, Gail.
Hi, thank you so much.
Hi, Gail.
I just have the experience of what I see and what I witness. I go to Pilates and every day I go to Pilates, I go to Greenology, and it works out really well. I'm thrilled with the health
Yeah.
benefits of both. So I just had a frustration for what happened one day last week. I just wrote something in the Canaan, which I didn't even know existed, but I was frustrated. And I had expressed my ideas to town hall, thinking they were good ideas and would be a good resolution, because I go to health fair where there's a 15-minute loading zone. And I've never seen Uber people, personally, I've never seen Uber people go to health fair or anyone along there. But I see Greenology having just tons of Uber people and the like, the delivery people picking up, dropping off, whatever. But I also see it happening with families. And that's what I would like to just read my little statement that I put in the Canaanite.
Is it long, Gail, or is it short? How
Trust
long is
me,
this going to take? We usually allow 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. but
It's
go ahead.
short. Trust me, I've had a long day. I can think of other things to be doing tonight, but I'm here because it's important. So I said, while at Greenology, I observe many people get ticketed as they rush in and rush out. Some of them are getting paid to do it, but not all. I called town hall and suggested a 15-minute parking zone like they have at health fair, but they don't seem to have the pickups, and town hall has not responded. And it had to be a year ago or something that I suggested this. What's in front of Greenology's loading zone? And here's my beef with it, because I had the experience and that's how I got to talk about it. They put the loading zone way up in the darn tree up by the leaves. And it's so far above the average car that drives there. And the car is busy looking ahead so they don't hit somebody else. They're not looking up in the trees to see that it's a loading zone. And when you say to them, you can't park here, it's a loading zone, they say, where's the sign? Inevitably, they say, where's the sign? So the game seems to be that town hall gives the appearance of liking to give parking tickets because people can't see the sign. So I said to town hall, why don't you move the sign where they can see it? Oh no, the trucks need to see it up here. I said, but you're giving tickets to the cars that are not reading it way above the car. It happened to me. I don't know who hasn't gotten a ticket there. And newcomers come into town to give us business. And they go to Pilates and they go home with a ticket. I can't tell you how many times it's happened. So, it's just
Well,
frustrating. The last
All
thing
right.
I wanted to raise
Hang
is
on,
the
Paul,
woman.
real quick, I'd like to get Tiger to weigh in on the sign because he's got to
Yeah.
leave for
Oh, he's
town
got town
council
council,
meeting in
right.
a few minutes. So if he could just weigh in on sign,
Yeah,
maybe we could
so-
relocate this.
Hey, Gail, just for reference, Tiger Man is our sign guy, if you will.
Okay,
He's
So-
also our director of public works.
Well, yeah, he has other titles, but sign guy at the
well,
moment.
thank God he's here then to listen.
Right.
We can use
Tiger,
help.
thoughts,
Paul.
thoughts on this? Hey, good evening, Tiger. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Thoughts on signage there?
We could
Is
take a
it-
look at, at their location. The problem that we have is there's several signs there, right? So you have the loading zone sign and then you've got, this side of the sign, it's stacked pretty well, but we could take a look and see whether or not we could realign them in a certain way to be a little bit more visible for everyone in that location,
Okay.
But yeah, I'll go out there tomorrow. I'll take a look and see what the art of the possible is there.
Okay, could you, because in town, you've created those nice smaller signs, that are sort of 5 or 6 feet off the ground, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And maybe we could do that there as well. It's like going to New York City. You can't figure out those no parking signs at all. There's
You know what was really,
15 lines on it. Go ahead, Gail.
okay, what was really helpful to me is I parked one day waiting for the toy store to open. I've got a developmentally disabled senior citizen in a nursing home. I couldn't wait to get in there and get something for him. And I never saw the no parking sign because it was buried by the plants. So I went to, I believe her name is Tucker. And
Yeah.
Tucker was fantastic. First of all, she listened. And secondly, she came up with a solution and it worked. She said, I'll have the guy who's watering the plants, trim the plants and lower the sign so we all can see the sign. That puts everybody on the same page.
Right.
Because what was happening is you couldn't see the sign, so how can you respect the sign? And then I said to the ticket people, I said, they're not disrespecting you, they can't see the sign. So it needs to come way down. So then, everybody's happy. And if you park there and then you get a ticket, well, that's on you. But if you can't see it, then you're set up for it. But what I wanted to say, the last little thing was this older senior citizen from New Hampshire plates. She had that darn green juice there and she couldn't even pay for it. She had to run out the door to move her car, leaving her food there. And on that particular day, the whole street in both directions, 2 blocks worth, there was no parking because they were tearing up the street. So what little there was, she ran in to do it as a senior citizen. So I've just seen it happen so much. And it's painful to see because you know what's going on and it's the game.
Okay, well, and thank you. And Gail, thank you for coming in and telling us that. I think we're working our way through the solutions here and that I don't think we can change the loading zone location. Because it's just been there forever and it's just too much of a problem, I think, to move that. But to get around the solution is creating a couple more parking spaces just a touch further up, right, John? With the movement of the fire hydrant
Yes.
and
exactly.
the movement of the handicap parking space would help create more of a zone there. And then also fixing the signage that Tiger will address would help tremendously because I agree that if it's too high, if it's buried in the leaves, you can't see it. So
Yeah,
I
'cause
think that is where we're going to head here. Yeah.
What about the idea of truncating the hours? Do you really need 4 hours? I still feel it's not utilized. The UPS trucks do most of the deliveries now, and they're going to double park if they have to. What
That's not
would be
fair to
wrong
other
with 7 to
businesses
9
that use
a.m.?
it.
Well,
A lot of
John, go
businesses
ahead.
aren't open at 9 a.m. There's restaurants that rely on the loading zones, and that's not fair to other
I'm
businesses.
the only
that
restaurant
are not.
there. The other loading zone
There's a
on
restaurants
Forest
all
Street,
on 4th Street.
they have a
around the
loading
corner.
zone. There is a loading zone on Forest Street, right behind me.
There's other businesses that use it, and changing it for just 2 hours, I don't think solves the problem.
It would be
No,
a
but I
huge
think-
solution for me and for
Well-
Stretch Lab.
Is that something we can take a look at? If we could just knock off 2 hours, just to help out, especially if there's other loading zones? Because if he's
Well,
saying.
I think the danger of that is that it other people that are affected by that are not here on this meeting and don't have a
Right.
voice, then they're going to be negatively affected, not knowing that this is even going on. So it's already clearly established, and I think we've been more than accommodating in moving a fire hydrant, moving a handicap spot, requesting that the parking authority not ticket Uber Eats drivers. I think changing the time of the loading zone isn't fair to other businesses.
Right.
But I see
And
Laura
temp-
Budd is on, and maybe Laura could of the Chamber of Commerce could question some of the other retailers or weigh in on this, but I'd like to get her input on this. But I believe we need to respect the other businesses that aren't open between 7 and 9.
Yeah, we can take a poll of some of the businesses. I mean, you've got Ching's up there. My understanding is another restaurant is going to open where Subway is. The Garlic and Herb space supposedly is getting another restaurant. So we can take a look at that. Also, in my role as chairman of the parking commission, Stacy and I are working together. Number one, to educate ourselves about where the loading zones are, what are the hours, what are the ordinances surrounding them, because I want to educate all the business owners about all these spots in town. So it is something that we are looking at right now because it does come up with our ticket appeals. And so we want to wrap our head around it, but we can certainly take a look at that and figure out, when, those zones are being used. But I mean, it's all day long. Other towns limit loading times, load in, load out, and New Canaan, just doesn't do that. It would just be too restrictive with all the deliveries coming all day long. I mean, you've got Amazon, UPS, FedEx, and then, just merchandise being loaded in and out. So, but we have, just to follow up on the Uber driver, I've been talking to Stacy, and I think that, the concept of the Uber Eats, the DoorDash guys being able to legally use those loading zones has been, circulating for a while. And I think the officers are aware of that. But, the more emphasis and the backing of the police commission will really help that.
All right, so James, you're the lawyer here. For a motion on this, I would like to, what I would like to do, I'm other James, McLaughlin, sorry.
All right.
Sorry, James, two Jameses on the call. And this is why I like to have meetings in person, because it gets clunky when you do Zooms. But what I would like to do is suggest this, that we make sure that the Uber Eats, et cetera, are allowed to park and load in those loading zones, okay? And that Stacy and the team over there is aware of it. I mean, their mission in town, parking, is not to raise revenue for the town. It's not what they're out to do. James, I'm seeing your face there.
I would concur.
All right, but that's not on their mission statement. Their mission statement is to,
She's pretty aggressive.
Other things.
Yes,
Right,
she's known for it.
But I think that would help you in your loading and unloading, right? I think it would help your anybody who's sending out for food there. And then if we create another couple of parking spaces there, that'll free up some spaces as well. And unfortunately, you're kind of jammed there because on a loading zone that's been there forever. I mean, it's been there for years.
But it was across.
Yeah.
It was across the street in front of Tolly. Why did they put it back? What was
I don't
wrong with
think
it
we
over
did.
there?
I don't think it ever moved. I think we added
think
it
it ever
across the
moved.
street. We added one across the street.
Oh,
and
you
it
added
was-
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it
yeah.
didn't work because it was too congested and
There
the
was too
driveway
many
was
trucks,
there
Right.
and the drivers.
It
couldn't use
became
it.
unsafe. Right. That became an unsafe zone too. So, all right. So Jim McLaughlin, do we need a motion here?
And I would just call them food delivery services rather
Yeah.
than Uber Eats, rather than get tied to
Okay.
a brand. but
Right.
Food delivery.
Although, yeah, and in all full disclosure, I do own Uber stock, so
So
I'm
it
not
works
pushing
very
it.
smoothly for all the Uber people.
So I guess if we're going to make a motion, it would be that the police commission would recommend to the parking bureau.
Yeah.
That Uber Eats and
Food deliveries, yeah,
delivery services will be permitted to park in that loading zone, provided that they're displaying a signage of some kind on their dashboard or in their car that indicates who they are, and not be ticketed. And that would also include the owners.
yeah, of Greenology as well.
Loading his car.
Correct. Okay. And we can clean up that language, but that's the gist of what we're saying. And then we'll get that message over to Stacy and Laura. You understand that as well, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so let's have a second.
I will share that.
Okay, so let's have a second on that.
I
Ava?
second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Okay. And in the meantime, Laura, you're going to go up and come back to us in a month or two on your polling of businesses around and come back with more feedback, okay?
Oh,
Yes? I lost you. Laura? Okay, well, we'll get back. We will circle back with the chamber as well, okay?
So the option of
given-
truncating the hours is still under discussion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Let's hope. Yeah, but Laura's, I just want more feedback on that first.
And we will also
Alright,
look
so
at,
James, you
I'll look
might-
at with Tiger of repositioning the signs and making those more visible and more clear. I'll make sure I'll do that with Tiger, and we'll also continue to pursue, although it won't be anytime soon, it won't be until spring, but we'll look at moving that hydrant and moving the parking space. So perhaps we can maybe reconvene on this topic maybe in April, and we'll have some better information.
The only thing I would add, Laura, if I could suggest that when you do this poll, that you consult with all the businesses, rather than just a sampling, because we have one business in front of us today. We wouldn't want, one or several of the businesses to not be consulted and then, have violent objection if we do something.
no, I absolutely agree with that. I have contact information for almost every single business in town. And as I said, we're kind of in the middle or the beginning stages of doing a, deep dive in loading zones. And I need to take a look at the ordinances that surround them. So we're not changing anything that's, in an ordinance, so we don't have to go through the ordinance committee. But yeah, I will poll everyone in the area. And I think what I'd like to do is work out a map and take a look at all the loading zones around town and, make sure that each area is covered in a safe area, and obviously work with John on all that. And then, yeah, we'll poll them. And then we'll also say if anyone has any questions or objections, we'll invite them to the next meeting when this issue is on the agenda.
That'd be great. Fair enough. Fair enough. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, James, you want to say something? I can tell.
No, I was gonna, I have one other location I would suggest. Maybe you're looking at adding a loading zone, and that's in front of New Balance and Spiga. That whole block is not active in the morning. And I bet you Spiga would like to have a loading zone. That's on Main Street. That's not too far from us.
Good. Laura, you heard that? As part of
Yes.
your,
Yes.
okay,
yes.
great. Okay, we'll
Yep.
look at that as well. Okay,
Okay.
great
That
idea.
could be utilized by healthcare.
All right, thank you guys for your time.
Okay, great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Gail,
you.
thank you for coming by.
It's my pleasure, because I see it as a customer, from a
Great,
customer
thank-
point of view.
No,
Thank you.
and as a
If I-
town, you're,
If I can
Are
say
you-
one more thing to that, you want to have the town be a pleasure to go to and not get a reputation of being, an expensive adventure where you get ticketed all the time.
I agree.
Yeah, thank you.
Gail, I agree. And
Thank
that's
you.
why we have these meetings regularly and we try to have open discussion about that. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Come by again.
I'm not sure you want me.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night. Okay. Item B, building renovation update, Chief.
So, yeah, I don't know much more than you folks know. I know the commission sent a memo to all the
Right.
boards about their preferences, and I'm sure, Paul, you have some comments about that. And certainly we'd like to get the project moving forward sooner rather than later. There's a sense of urgency to it, certainly. And I appreciate everybody's work towards it. Paul?
Yeah, we've looked back, and I've got the last 3 years of deficiencies in the building, and it's a I don't know, it's 7 or 8 page list of problems with the building. I think we're all aware of them without rehashing them, but they're certainly there. And I think as a commission, we're all on the same page as wanting to move this project forward, not seeing any other location that makes sense to us where it should be. And that I think there'd be a lot of dissent in town to move it to another location and into the woods or onto a field at Saks, and that the neighbors would like to see it stay where it is as well. And as we suggested in our memo to the town bodies, we would like to keep it in place and then get a deeper dive, a further study as to either renovate the current building or to tear it down and build in a whole new structure, and then go through a real cost benefit analysis on those two ideas, as opposed to still looking for another site. So we're just trying to advance the ball here as we can. I've been involved in this for at least 3 years. I've been on a building committee for at least a year, since last March, so almost a year. We've looked at with Stuart Salvini, I've looked at a number of locations as well, with Jim Bell as well. So this is not a sort of a passing look at the situation. We have been involved with this and I have personally been involved with this for a number of years. So we hope that it gets advanced soon. All right. Item C, townwide security initiative funding request, Chief.
Sure. Jennifer, you give me share the screen.
Sure, one sec. Try now.
Okay. Everybody can see that, I hope.
Yep.
So this is related to a request that I forwarded to the Board of Selectmen towards the end of January, related to request for $200,000 for some townwide security initiatives that I'm going to talk a little bit about more as we move through this presentation. Given the crime we've seen and the concerns expressed by our residents, I think it's a perfect time for us to build on what's been done and improve on it, and talk a little bit about how we're kind of thinking about this. We're thinking about it as risk management, very typical process of identifying the risks, assessing it, reviewing controls, and controlling the risk. And that's precisely what we intend to do. If this money is approved, myself, John DiFederico, and Andrew Walsh will all work together with Public Works and IT to make sure that these initiatives happen as aggressively and quickly as possible. And we'll be very thoughtful about our planning and what we do in a lot of different ways. So crime in New Canaan, stolen vehicles. We all know we had an unprecedented number of stolen vehicles last year, 39. We've had several this year already. Car breaks, broken windows in parks. Waveney Park, Irwin Park are targeted. And it's not quite a epidemic in our parks, but it's causing concern certainly from residents and park users. So far this year, good news is none in none in Irwin, 4 in 2021 and 4 in 2020. Waveney Park, we've had 5 this year and 4 the previous year and 1 the year prior to that. It's a consistent pattern, and these folks, as we've discussed before, typically come in a rental car, they blend in, they're professional. Sometimes they come down from down south and they hit multiple locations throughout Fairfield County. and they're looking for valuables and or easily fenced items. And it's a preventable crime, but they do know that people that are in parks are going for a walk. They'll typically leave their purse or their wallet in the car, and that's how they're targeted. And the usual part is they break the windows. So only about 20% of the larcenies from vehicles involve this group of criminals. And obviously thefts from vehicles is another crime we're seeing, and typically about 80% of that is unlocked vehicles where crews are stealing from the vehicles, and the same group usually that are stealing vehicles as well. So actual crime, fear and perception, obviously we know what the actual crime is, but we're actually very concerned about the fear and perception of crime in our town. So we believe these initiatives will help dramatically with correcting some of that and calming some of the concern that folks are having. And this video here is from a residence in New Canaan, happened recently, and it's a perfect crime prevention message. And you'll see what happens, hopefully, if it works. So you see that criminal there? He's trying to get into the car. Car's locked. What does he do? He runs away and goes to a different, easier target. So that's a crime prevention message right there. Lock your
And that's
car.
with lights on, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
well
sure.
lit and everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Right. But the good news is the car was locked and couldn't get into it, so he moved on to a different location, and we've seen that happen time and time again. This is a little snapshot of larcenies from vehicles in our town. So it's virtually throughout town. There's some concentrations, and we've seen this slide before. And stolen vehicles, kind of corollary to the larcenies from vehicles, because these groups will go around and they'll steal a vehicle with the keys in it and it's unlocked, or they'll steal from a vehicle if it's unlocked. And sometimes they'll steal mail too. So they're kind of a shopping spree to some degree. So we're very concerned about this, obviously, and we do our best to patrol and be on top of things. But we believe that these security initiatives done correctly will mitigate and or prevent and help us with investigations, and will help our residents feel more secure, which is something we're certainly deeply concerned about. Here's combined version, stolen vehicles and larcenies from vehicles and overlay. So it's an enormous amount of crime happening in this isolated instances. The good news, it's property crime, but we're certainly concerned about it. More crime in New Canaan, complex frauds and thefts. We've seen that happen in the center of town. Organized retail theft, we've seen and made some arrests there. We had a serious injury, hit and run accident on Oak Ridge Road. We're able to track that person down and arrest him, but it took a while for that to happen. So these initiatives will help with that. Jewelry store break and enter, we had on Elm Street, and certainly if these initiatives were in place, that would have helped with that investigation and might have mitigated it, but we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Residential burglaries happen in town, and the folks are coming into town, they're in cars, and it's likely sometimes they're traveling through town or traveling through areas where these security initiatives cameras might be, and they might capture them in the progress, will help with our investigations. And bank robberies, we had a bank robbery, and we were able to track down and arrest those folks. Took a lot longer than it would have if we had these initiatives in place. But this guy, believe it or not, people still rob banks, and they have cameras in banks, and they're not shy about doing it. And cameras are a useful tool. So that's important to note. They're not necessarily going to prevent a crime from happening, but they capture events happening, and they help us with investigations. And sometimes if people see a camera that are going to do ill will, they'll decide to change their behavior and go somewhere else and do that. And that's exactly what we would like to happen. So townwide security initiatives request, I requested $200,000. That we believe will build on and strengthen initiatives in Waveney Park, our one park and center of town. We'll continue to partner with our public works and IT folks who've been done great work there. And we may need additional funds, but we believe it will take care of the majority of the initiatives that we want to launch there. And as I note here, initiatives may mitigate some crimes, but crime prevention best practices are essential. So it's a whole kind of puzzle piece here that we're filling, but it's not going to completely eradicate this, but I think it's going to help us dramatically as these move forward. And certainly the weather is being cooperative soon. That will help us launch some of these initiatives and get this work done. So here's a kind of a snapshot of progress based on current state of things. Waveney Park, Irwin Park, and center of town. And our intent is to adapt to changing crime trends and evolving technology to try to adopt best practices and when we are implementing these initiatives. And here's a kind of a breakdown of our budget: 25,000 for Waveney, 75 for Irwin, and 125 for the center of town. And additional funds may be requested, but we believe this will accommodate the majority of our requests unless we run into some unusual circumstances. And there's been multiple memorandums that the police commission has seen, and I've distributed to various boards over the course of time that have a lot more detail in them. But this is kind of our snapshot of what we're trying to do and accomplish. And focus areas based on crime and fear of crime. So here's our project management, typical project management: initiate, plan, execute, monitor, and reassess. And that's a focus point: monitoring, reassessing. We're going to continue to do that as we move these initiatives forward, and provided the boards approve the money. And our plan is to finalize everything in Waveney, then move on to Irwin, and then move on to the center of town. So what are our goals? Provide reassurance and comfort to residents, merchants, and park users, and balance thoughtful and creative security initiatives with privacy concerns. And obviously in public places, there's no real privacy concern there, but we're very cognizant of the concerns that our community has. But we're balancing that with crime prevention and crime investigation tools. So we intend to leverage technology tools to help investigate crimes and enhance public safety. And of course, if these monies are approved, we will provide regular progress updates to all the boards to let them know how we're moving along, and we'll be very thoughtful and complete in the way we provide those reports and progress updates. Any questions?
Hey, commissioners, questions?
Why
Mr.
is
Gabin?
why is the Irwin Park 75,000, which has a much smaller parking area than Waveney, which is 25?
A lot of work has been done in Waveney. There's a couple more pieces of the puzzle to complete. A little bit of work has been done in Irwin. There's more done there. So that's an estimate. It could be short of that 75, and then we'll use that towards the center of town initiatives. But based on progress to date, that's an estimate why we need 75 there versus 25 in Waveney.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay,
hopeful that I'll be presenting this to the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen at some point, and they enthusiastically embrace it and approve it because we believe it's going to do great things for our town and comfort everyone and move things forward, and true partnership between the police department and public works and information technology.
Yeah. All right. So what I'd like is a motion to approve the request for $200,000 and the chief's plan.
So moved.
Okay.
I second.
Motion. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. All right. So Chief, you now have it's unanimously approved by the Police Commission to move forward on this plan to go to the Board of, I guess, Selectmen, Finance, and then Town Council, correct? And then just keep us up to date as a progress and where it's to be spent and how it's going to be spent, and we'll monitor that along with you. Okay.
You'll have a report every meeting.
Great. Thank you.
Well,
Item D, proposed budget update, the 23 budget.
So I had a presentation that was enthusiastically embraced and supported by our Board of Selectmen towards the end of January. And they approved all our requests. Tomorrow night, I have Board of Finance, and I have the same presentation as I have for Board of Selectmen. You're all welcome to join that. And I'm very happy with the support we received and the work that our officers do, and it's well deserved.
Very good. Thank you. Item E, course approval for Deputy Chief DeFederico.
Sure. Deputy Chief DeFederico is continuing his studies towards a master's degree at the University of New Haven. He is requesting approval of research seminar, and I enthusiastically recommend support of this request.
Okay, motion to approve. Motion,
Move to approve.
James. Okay, Shakeba, second.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, aye. Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
aye. All right, that's unanimous. Good. Letters of appreciation.
Sure, always the nice part of the meeting to recognize good work our officers do. The first email that I have is from the Director of Safety and Security at St. Luke's. And I'll read the whole thing because it's quite a nice email. Chief Krolikowski, thank you for you and your department for the tremendous outpouring of support it is sent to St. Luke's these past few days. The phone calls and emails offering to help in whatever way is greatly appreciated. A special thank you goes to Deputy Chief DeFederico, Lieutenant Ferraro, Officer Gibson, Bentley, and Coughlin. Their assistance and support was instrumental in making the students, faculty, staff, and families that came to campus to be together feel safe and supported. They are a true compliment to the New Canaan Police Department. Please pass my personal thank you on to them and the rest of the department. He says, thank you and be safe. So that's certainly a nice, thoughtful email. And of course, that was related to the tragedy of the hockey player who lost his life in that accident. And
Right.
So prayers to his family, certainly.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Next,
Yeah,
thank you is an email related to Nicole, Officer Nicole Bartuli, giving a tour of a resident and his daughter of the police headquarters. And he said, Kelly and I would like to thank you for setting up the tour. Officer Nicole did a great job with Kelly and helped make this a wonderful day and memory. It was her birthday, so that was a birthday wish that we were able to fulfill, and certainly we love to do that every time we can.
okay, great. Got that. Okay, State of the Department, we've gone through that. The Stephen Wood Officer of the Year memo.
Yes, we had a nice ceremony last week to recognize a couple of officers' promotions and some other awards. So specifically, Officer Kelly Coughlin received the Officer Stephen Wood Officer of the Year Award. As you all know, Stephen Woods was lieutenant, and he lost his life to pancreatic cancer a number of years ago. And his leadership and love in the department was such that we decided to name the award after him annually. And Officer Coughlin's work as the community impact officer was tremendous last year. And she helped the merchants and everyone visiting our town feel more comfortable and supported. Award. Great work by her, and thanks for her for her
Right,
work.
that's great. Great, thank you. On other matters, there was one other matter I just want to follow up on from last month, and it had to do with a citizen's complaint on Nursery Road that we didn't follow up appropriately or in a timely manner. And John, you're on. You looked into this some more, and what did we find?
Yes, the gentleman that came in made a statement that we didn't thoroughly investigate his loss of a package, a theft of package, theft of mail complaint. And when I looked into it, it wasn't necessarily how he portrayed it. Our officers took his complaint, which was 3 days after he noticed the mail was missing. He noticed the mail missing on October 18th, and he reported it to us on October 21st. And he made a statement that we saw a suspect vehicle and we didn't pursue the matter and just let the person go, which wasn't necessarily the case. What really happened was on the 18th, officers found mail had been gone through in another area of town, and at that night they saw a vehicle that looked suspicious, and they tried to stop that vehicle, unknown if it was related to any kind of mail theft or anything, but they it appeared suspicious to the officers. The car did not stop. The officer got the license plate, did an extensive 2-month investigation, tried to develop probable cause, but was unable to, based on the information that he obtained, to get any kind of substantial suspect into any crime or any kind of probable cause to go any further. So our officer did a phenomenal job, and to portray us as being lackadaisical and not pursuing it just was disingenuous on this person's part. And I just want to make sure that we correct the record.
Thank you. No, and there is we do not chase cars in this town. We can't do that. And the car went into Pound Ridge, so we can't pursue into New York either. But as you said, after going through all the other phone records and all the other stuff, a thorough investigation was done here, and by a couple of months, and it just didn't sound right when I heard it that last month that is how we handled it, and as it turns out, it was handled differently. So I appreciate that, and appreciate the officers and lieutenants who did all the work on this. And just for the record, I appreciate everything that they did do and continue to do that. So thank you. Any other new business?
Yeah, Paul, I'm not sure if you saw, I sent out it was after the agenda and packet went out. Deputy Chief just wanted to make some updates to the website under Police Commission regarding traffic calming. He could speak to it. I did send you guys a document that he had put together with the changes. It's just some pretty basic updates just to kind of bring it up to 2022.
Great. Thank you, John, for doing that. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know if you need a vote, but I don't think so. Just let them know that you're good with changes. I don't know if you guys saw it and reviewed it yet.
I have not.
They look fine to me.
Okay.
Yes, some of the information in there was outdated, and I also added my personal contact information on there. So if people just have general inquiries regarding traffic, they don't necessarily have to email the police commission. They can contact me directly by phone or email. And then, like I said, it just referenced some old documents that aren't relevant anymore, and I updated those to current documents and some current web links to sites to the state and to the DOT and those sorts of things. So I just kind of gave it a refresh.
Good. Which kind of brings up the rest of the questions is how does the rest of our site look? I haven't looked at it in a while either. And who would go through that and look to refresh all our information or public information?
Well, this information is on newcanaan.info under the police commission.
Yeah.
There's a traffic calming section there. We also have the newcanaanpolice.gov website, which has a whole bunch of other information. I'll let the chief talk to that.
Chief, has that been updated recently? Because again, I haven't looked at it.
It's updated fairly regularly.
Okay.
And we do take a look at that. Christine Brown, I'll have her take another look through everything, but just the other day we made some updates. So.
Oh, great. Okay, good. Yeah, it's just we're so familiar with it. I just never go on it. So
sure.
Yeah, John, I read this, so I have no changes.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Executive session.
I have a couple of quick items.
Okay. Why don't we
I just need to pause the recording and hang on one second. Okay, we're back in live session.
Okay, police commissioners are coming out of executive session at 7:13. Any other comments out there? I believe there's someone else in the waiting room. Is it Teresa?
Teresa, I just put her back in our group. I don't know if she's still on. Teresa, are you there? Teresa,
are you on mute?
Yes.
I was on mute. I'm just listening.
Okay. Teresa, we read your letter where we are. We're not. None of this has even come to us yet, as far as I know. And John, if you could address this for a bit, and then I've got my comments.
Yeah, sure. Public Works went and is pursuing funding for sidewalk projects throughout town.
I'm sorry, for the other
And-
commissioners, this is regarding sidewalks. Yeah, this is regarding sidewalks on 106 near the bird sanctuary, coming around to about where Gower is. Go ahead, John,
Right,
sorry.
and
Thanks.
so that was, that's been talked about for many years. Sidewalks in the area, whether it's up to the bird sanctuary or beyond. So that's it's the very, very preliminary stages of that. Studies are going to be done and to determine if it's appropriate, and if so, which side of the road. And certainly neighborhood feedback will be solicited, and we'll listen to what the neighbors say. And I'm in complete agreement that there should not be a sidewalk on that side of the road. I'm in complete agreement with Teresa in that regard. We're advocating that there's a large problem with accidents in that area, and we're looking to mitigate those through improvements. And I can't in any good conscience support putting pedestrians in that area that we're saying cars are crashing. So in that regards, I totally agree. But it is, just to do our due diligence, we do need to look at everything and look at all possibilities and gather input. But I would be opposed to putting a sidewalk there right now under the current conditions.
I agree.
Yeah.
That was my whole issue, is that I have concerns about safety for pedestrians. But I know that there's been, I felt a little blindsided by this. There was an email that was sent by residents who live on the turn. And they asked those who were supporting, wanted more information, but also supporting vehicular and pedestrian safety improvements to respond to the email. And I did not respond to the email because I was not supporting a sidewalk, and I have always been opposed to a sidewalk on that turn. And I read the New Canaanite often. I read the New Canaan Advertiser. I've lived in town for over 30 years. I'm very nervous talking on the.
Oh, don't, Teresa, it's okay. It's just it's a good
I
group.
just feel,
It's a friendly group.
I don't feel that everyone
Yeah.
has been friendly in this process.
No,
And-
but I'm talking about just this group. that
Yeah,
just sits here.
I understand. I feel like some people were really being heard and
Mm.
some were not. And Tiger Man has mentioned a petition. I've watched the videos of the planning and zoning. I've watched videos of the ARPA funding. And I called last week and I was told by Public Works that there were no decisions made. And I'm the one that said to them, how can you say no decisions? ARPA, it's funded now. And planning and zoning has said it meets, conservation and development, the plan of that. And I'm like, it doesn't. In my opinion, it does not meet that, because I have a small piece of property and a lovely house, and I don't want to move. And I'm 55 years old and I don't intend on moving, but I also don't feel I should have the burden of a sidewalk because some neighbors want it. And I have I put a wall in the front of my house to protect anyone on my front yard from that turn. I feel that this whole discussion of there won't be a sidewalk without a guardrail. And then I find out that, and it would definitely be a galvanized steel guardrail, because that's all that the state would be able to fund if they did agree to do this. And then in talking to Tiger Mask last week over the phone, I find out that, the town of New Canaan is going to request that the state put a wood guardrail. Well, when was that decision made? And who was he negotiating that with? It makes me think that certain neighbors, certain people who want the sidewalk are having conversations that I'm certainly not privy to. And I've spoken to a few neighbors who know nothing about this sidewalk, absolutely nothing. And yet there are others who are on an email. And I asked Tiger Man last week to please send me a petition. He's like, I want to know. I was on the email list that went around in October and I didn't respond to it, but now I don't know who else has responded to it. And when I asked for the petition, Tiger said, well, there's not really a petition per se, but when he spoke to someone or other, he said that the process starts with the petition. And he said all of the segments basically align with the plan for conservation and development, and that neighbors have requested. And I think we can't keep saying everyone wants this sidewalk when not everyone wants this sidewalk. I don't want this sidewalk, and I know other people who don't. But
Paul, if
well,
I
it's-
could just,
it's-
inter-
yeah, come on, John.
comment on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So,
I appreciate
Um,
your time, first of all. I know I sound really horrible.
No.
but
And I'm not
So-
against the safety stuff. I told Tiger Man, I'm all for the lights on the utility pole, which I know other people are objecting to. I don't want strips on the road. It would make it very loud at my house. And I mean, there's all this discussion about Weed Street, what's going on with Weed and Elm. Well, what do they think happened to 106 when the view was put there? I mean, we have so much more traffic than we had before. If this was even something that was discussed years ago, it would be a different story than it is now. Has anyone looked into the amount of traffic that comes around that turn every day?
Yeah, John, address there is the traffic studies out there, right? Or they're being,
It's
it is being
worse.
studied? Go ahead, John.
we've studied the traffic for years now. I put the
Yeah.
traffic counters out there, so we were well aware. But regarding the email and the people advocating for safety improvements, no one has ever spoken and said that they're a sidewalk. The only time a sidewalk was mentioned was when we hired the traffic engineer, because that was a potential possible way to improve pedestrian safety. They looked at a number of items. A number of items are possible, but not likely for various reasons. One being the need for a guardrail. With the cutouts for the driveways there, that would make the guardrails dangerous. So therefore, that lessens the safety of having a sidewalk there. So all these things, we're just vetting them out. We need to discuss them and vet them out. And the state would fund for a steel guardrail. If one was put in, the town would put the funds towards making it more aesthetically pleasing, regardless of what side it would be on. But the state would only support funding for the steel guardrails. So, all those things, they're not done and being bargained for by anyone. I've yet to hear of any of the neighbors that are in favor of a sidewalk or promoting that. That's never been on anybody's agenda, and no one, quite frankly, has given one recommendation for over another. The only recommendations came from the traffic engineer that we asked him to come up with any and all improvements that could be made. And we as a town need to look at them and decide what is something that we, what would be acceptable to us. And my opinion, again, is that a sidewalk would not be acceptable on that side of the road for a variety of reasons. One, it needs guardrails. Two, it just putting people in a dangerous location. So, I can't say that the sidewalks aren't going to happen because I don't have the deciding vote, but all things are leading towards them not being at least the sidewalk not being a good solution for that side of the road.
That's
But we are looking at a number of items, and there is no petition. I've not seen any petition.
The email that I sent you a copy of the email, all of you. Well,
Right. No, I got it. Yeah, we got it.
the copy of the email that was sent by the two neighbors who live on the turn, one of them being Chris Herring, who's on planning and zoning as an alternate member, but he is on planning and zoning.
Right.
None of that came up during the planning and zoning thing. I live on the turn. There was an accident in front of my house. There was none of that. The traffic study was not mentioned during planning and zoning. It was all about whether or not it fit into the plan for conservation and development. They didn't talk about houses where elderly could stay and remain, which is also part of planning and plan for conservation and development. But I do want to say that the email that I forwarded to you all from Chris Herring and the Jewetts, I can't remember the Granger Jewett and his wife, and Chris Herring and his wife, They sent that email. They literally, I put quotes in my email to you all that said that they were looking for support for pedestrian and vehicular safety. They themselves put pedestrian safety. They asked people to send an email back with their names, their address, if they were interested in supporting it. And
Well,
some,
pedestrian safety is not sidewalks.
no,
I
it's
support pedestrian
specifically-
traffic safety. So they did not mention sidewalks, and pedestrian safety is not sidewalks.
Well, I will tell you, I got the emails response from people. I have, some people responded all, and I hope that a sidewalk is included. Finally, I hope we get a sidewalk. There were, of the 90-something people that were on that email, by the way, where did they get my email from? And maybe I didn't want my name and my address on an email to 90-something people. So I'm a little
All right,
interested in
well,
that. And that, I have a number of emails back, 20-something emails, including those two letter writers, email writers. So about 20 people out of the 90-something people responded that they were interested. And I didn't respond to that email because while I am very interested in traffic safety, as I said, I have not said one word of complaint about a traffic light out in front of my house. It will be out in front of my house where my bedroom window is. I have, blackout shades and curtains. So I'm
all right, well,
fine.
we haven't seen any of these proposals coming to us.
I'm just telling you, the neighbors are talking about finally getting their sidewalk.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is why I
No,
feel.
no, thank
And
you
then
for
we
bringing
have-
this to
And
our
then
attention.
but then we also have Chris Shipper, who's talking about how dangerous it is to see women with baby strollers on 106. And that it just takes, I quoted him in my email, it takes 1 second looking at a text. And I said, someone should remind him it is illegal to text and drive. I've said this multiple times. Because women want to drive or walk with strollers on 106 is not a reason for me to have a sidewalk in front of my house. And Tiger Man said right now, the sidewalks are being maintained. The snow and the ice is being removed by the town. But Tiger Man told me on the phone that this is not necessarily a long-term thing. But he also told me I would lose. That Main Street people hired lawyers and they lost.
Oh, all right. Well,
It's very
look,
frustrating, very frustrating.
No, I understand your frustration, and as John said, this is a very dangerous corner. It'd be ridiculous to put a sidewalk on that side of the road. If they want to put one on the east side of the road, that makes a lot more sense, and they should study that. But I think when it comes to us, I think we'll debate it and discuss it and deal with it. But it hasn't even surfaced to us yet. But I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and our radar is now up, and I'll talk with Tiger as well. So we'll see where this thing stands.
Listen to the video from Planning and Zoning where Tiger gives a whole long discussion about, and I can't think of his name. John Engel asked, when will the residents who are going to be impacted, when will they be notified? And it's after all of this. They're saying we'll be notified after this, but I know that the Jewetts and I know that the Herrings had a conversation because I was told that I could join. Tiger Man said, this was in October, that there was a conversation to be had about what improvements were going to be made on the state road, and that I could attend if I wanted to. And I had personal obligations that did not allow me to attend.
So John,
conversation, and I want to see the petition that
Teresa,
said every segment of that road has gotten a petition by residents. So I'd like to see the petition, or I'd like Tiger Man to clarify that there is no petition.
Okay, John, John and I will
the
take
town
it.
doesn't put out petitions.
We don't. I don't know where he got the petition.
There is no petition.
Well, he said it.
Okay. Well, we'll track down through Tiger and we'll discuss this at our next meeting, because I don't think it hasn't even come to us. So, and I understand your frustration and that we want to nip this in the bud now, but
Nip it in the bud. Tiger told me it has ARPA funding and we are moving on now. It has the 824 approval and they've hired $35,000 has been already approved to be spent on this survey. How we could say that no decisions have been made when it is now funded, when it is now approved by planning and zoning, which Chris Herring is on and hasn't commented on. It's why I feel very frustrated.
The
And-
survey is looking at both sides of the roads in the entire area. It doesn't mean that the sidewalk will go on the entire area.
all right, I tell you what, we'll get some more clarity and come back to this item, all right? Because I haven't seen the survey, I haven't seen any of this, so, but we appreciate you bringing this to our attention. I'm also a neighbor in there too, and we just want to make sure that people are safe, and I don't feel that they'd be safe if they put a sidewalk on that side of the road either. So,
But on either side of
We're
the
on it.
road, because there
Well-
are kids, there are very
Us,
few
yeah.
kids on Old Studio Road, because I live on the corner of Old Stamford and Old Studio.
Right.
And there are, I see in the morning, very few kids walking to school. On occasion, I see kids taking a bike to school, and I see kids on 106 taking a bike to school when obviously the weather is better. And
Right.
when I have a big shoulder in front of my house, I'm aware of it, and I have no objection to people walking along. However, when you remove the shoulder to put a sidewalk, all of those kids are going to be out on 106.
yeah,
You're
it's
getting
dangerous.
rid
It's
of
dangerous. Yeah,
very
no, I
expensive
think it's
for
dangerous too.
school. And if we're going to talk about the women with strollers, I mean,
Right.
we're going
All
to
right,
pick
Teresa,
strollers and
we're good-
women
we're-
over people on bikes. I'm just saying this, all of this has been discussed. This is not, you're
Okay,
saying
but-
it's new to you. It's not new to me, because Tiger Man has told me, responded to my concerns with answers that have obviously been generated from some other discussion.
Teresa,
Right,
this is
we're-
Jim McLaughlin.
Hi.
As Paul said, thanks very much for bringing this to our attention. I think this is the first that the commissioners
Yeah.
have ever heard of this whole issue. So there's nothing we're going to do now. It's going to be looked into, and we'll look to hear from you again and see what
No,
we
it's
can
on the
do.
agenda. It'll be an agenda item for next month for sure. But we'll get to the bottom of this.
And you
All
can
right.
feel free to reach out to
All
me
right.
directly. Because
Okay,
I'd be
thank
happy
you,
to talk.
Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank
That'd
you.
be great.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
you.
Okay, any other items? Nope, hearing none. How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
A
Second,
second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for your participation.
Thank you.